Welcome to the eShopperReviews podcast, episode 33. This is the podcast for December 2023. I'm Jenn Ip.
And I'm Jake McNeil.
For those new to this podcast, eShopperReviews.com is a website where Jake reviews games on Nintendo platforms with over 3,000 reviews across multiple platforms, past and present. All of our content is supported by the kind donations of our Patreon patrons, and you can find our Patreon page at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. This month's sponsors are Ben, Andy Miller, Xleen, Homer Simpin, Johannes, Talisa, Francis Ops, Gabriel Coronado Medina, Ilya Zarev, Jared Wark, Christopher Wolf, and Seth Christianfeld. Thank you all for helping to keep the reviews coming. Before moving on, we should take a moment to address something you may have noticed in our intro. We are officially launching eShopperReviews.com on December 4th, 2023.
Whoa, we finally made it! Presumably because we're recording this before that happens, but whoa!
If you're a Patreon patron listening to this podcast before December 4th, that means you're hearing about it before it happens.
That's right. You special few who are kind enough to give us monies, you are the first ones to hear this news. Assuming that you're listening to this podcast when it's released and not just going like, I'll wait until after the weekend. Then I guess you'll just find out along with everyone else. Yeah, we've been working on this for...
You have been working on this.
You worked on it a little.
And then, like, 1%. You did, like, 99% of the work.
Okay. Yeah, I've been really putting the nose to the grindstone, trying to get this done as quickly as I can. And I know it's been a while. I think that we started having issues with Reddit in, I want to say it was June.
Yeah, summer.
And it took me a few months to figure out just what direction I was going to take eShopper Reviews. But after playing around with WordPress, I kind of came to the conclusion that it seemed like a really good fit and a good direction to take eShopper Reviews. So we are going to be temporarily reopening the subreddit to make the announcement, to get everyone to understand that we're moving everything over, and then we will be permanently shutting down the subreddit. In addition, while we will definitely be continuing on with the Patreon page, we are not going to be flooding the Patreon page with reviews any longer. All of that content, old, new, everything, is going to eShopperReviews.com. We have all sorts of special stuff planned for the launch. We have a contest that we're going to run. We have some special reviews that we're going to be putting out. I feel like I put a lot of work into making sure the website looks nice and pretty and professional and all of that. I am super excited to finally be putting this out in the world, and I hope that all of you really enjoy it too, because man, it's been a lot of work over the last half a year getting this ready to go.
If you are also in the North America region, we will be doing a giveaway.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. I was planning on having a contest, but it is very specific to the North American region because I'm going to be giving out Nintendo eShop gift codes, but those are for the North American eShop. So I'm sorry to any of my foreign listeners. That's, not going to include you, sadly, but to anyone in North America listening to this, please head over to the website when it opens and partake in that. It's going to be hopefully a lot of fun.
We have one more major announcement.
Yes.
This podcast will be our final podcast.
Yeah, we talked it over, Jenn and I. We had a long discussion about kind of what we wanted to get out of this podcast and what we wanted to do going forward, in particular because we are kind of having a big rebirth of eShopper Reviews. And I kind of voiced that this podcast wasn't really taking the shape that I had originally envisioned. And Jenn told me, well, you can tell them yourself.
It's mostly you talking.
Yeah, I wanted to involve Jenn more, and I feel like, and you can correct me on this, I feel like Jenn has been kind of frustrated with, it just doesn't really seem to involve her all that much from her end. And
you're the one who plays the Switch the most. I'm still a PC gamer at heart.
Now, I tend to think that a lot of the content that we talk about isn't even necessarily Nintendo Switch exclusive, but at the same time, the kind of format that we've been trying to approach this with, it just doesn't seem to really generate the kind of discussion that I'm looking for. It doesn't generate the interest that Jenn is looking for, and it doesn't really seem to be generating the audience that both of us have been hoping for. So this will be our final podcast. However, we are not just ending this and not putting out anything else in its place. We have something else to announce here too. You want to go for it, Jenn?
We will be hosting bi-weekly live streams 2 times a month on Saturday at 5 p.m. PST, with a possible pre-stream discussion starting at 4 p.m. PST.
So when Jenn and I were talking about the podcasts, Jenn had mentioned that she really enjoyed doing the live streams that we've done in the past.
Well, that you've done in the past?
You've participated in a few of them.
I don't remember if... Anyway, I have a lot of experience.
I do remember you participated in at least a game or two of Among Us that we did on live stream.
Oh, yeah, probably. But no, I'm far more comfortable doing streaming stuff because of what I've done on Twitch in the past.
We're going to be aiming in that direction, and hopefully it'll give us a chance to have a bit more of a natural interaction here. It'll give us a chance to share some of the games that I've been reviewing with us playing it live so that you can get a feel for exactly what it is we've been talking about. And it'll also give you guys more of a chance to interact with us while we're in the middle of things. You know, ask questions about the games that we're playing. You know, give us your ideas and your thoughts and stuff. We absolutely want to hear from you. Please, please, please give us your feedback. Tell us what you want to see, because a large part of why we do this is we want to give you the kind of stuff that you want to see. So yeah, lots of big changes coming this month.
Are you excited?
I am excited, a bit apprehensive. Like it's such a big change for me. And it's something I've been working toward for so long that for it to finally arrive now, it seems surreal. And there's a part of me that's like, I really hope this whole thing doesn't blow up in my face. I just hope that people find it and that people enjoy the content that we're putting out there. Like I said, we're doing this for you guys listening to us now. Well, and the people reading the website and everything like that. We're going to have a new TikTok page. That's an announcement we didn't even go over here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Or is it a TikTok account? What is it called?
It's just a TikTok.
Okay. We'll have a TikTok.
Yeah.
And we'll be releasing videos on that every once in a while. Yeah, all sorts of big changes, and we really hope that you join us for all of it. But as for this podcast, we are recording our last, so hopefully let's make it a good one, huh, Jenn?
All right, back to the regularly scheduled stuff.
All right, stuff. I like stuff. Let's do stuff.
So our patron voted games, the standard vote.
We had 3 different votes to select 3 different games. We did this before previously, and we're doing it again before the end of the year. However, the previous time it was games that didn't have Metacritic scores. This time it was the highest Metacritic scores for 2023 that I have not yet reviewed. And we have basically 2 ties here. There are the top 2 games that both got the same number of votes, and then there's tied for 3rd place.
We have A Space for the Unbound, Coffee Talk Episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly, and a tie between Dredge and Pikmin 1 and 2 Bundle.
So I will definitely be reviewing A Space for the Unbound and Coffee Talk Episode 2, Hibiscus and Butterfly, sometime in the month of December. That's assuming that the votes don't change dramatically between now and the time that we put out this podcast, although those 2 have a pretty steady lead. I highly doubt that that's going to change much. And the other 2 that are tied for 3rd place, Dredge and Pikmin 1 and 2 Bundle, I will be reviewing at least one of those 2 games. Well, I say 2 games, but Pikmin 1 and 2 Bundle is kind of 2-in-1 kind of thing. Anyway, one of those 2 selections I will be reviewing sometime in the month of December.
The all-patron budget vote was also a tie.
Mm-hmm.
We have Nianzu and Kuma Kichi, Let's Make a Flower Garden, and High Cars.
I know nothing about these two games, but I will be selecting one of them to review in the month of December. Well, at least one of them, I should say. And reviewing that then. So I guess stay tuned to find out which one gets it.
You're doing something different for next month.
Yeah, I've been experimenting with the patron votes, kind of trying to find ways to make it more interesting, to give you more choices. And for the December vote to select a game to be reviewed in January, I am opening it up for anyone who can vote in the monthly patron vote. I am opening it for you to suggest any game that you want to be reviewed, and I will randomly select one of those games to review in the month of January. Now, I got rules for this.
Oh?
Rule number 1, it needs to be a game released on Nintendo Switch. We're a Nintendo-focused website. I can say website now. So we're sticking with Nintendo games. Number 2, it cannot be a game I've already reviewed. I do re-reviews on the website, but that's when I feel like it's warranted, and I don't want to go back and revisit a game if I just feel like, well, I have the same opinion about this that I did before. So it's got to be a game I have not yet reviewed. Rule number 3, it needs to be a game I can get for under $60. I'm totally open to playing imports, assuming that it's in English and all of that, but I am not spending like $100 to get a game that wins this vote. It's got to be within reason. As long as I can play it, it's fine, but it's got to be under the $60 threshold, which thankfully includes the overwhelming majority of games. I suppose technically that means that Mortal Kombat 1 isn't included on this, but oh well, you have literally thousands of other games that you can choose from here. Finally, and I kind of touched on this a moment ago, it needs to be a game that can be played by someone who only speaks or reads English. Again, I am fine with importing games as long as I can import it. I'm not going to go onto a foreign eShop. But it has to be a game that I can import and still play it even though I don't know Japanese.
I mean, I think that's a given rule. I don't think you need to explain it.
Some people go out of their way to review Japanese games. And the thing is, I would actually be totally cool with reviewing imports. And there are definitely some Nintendo Switch imports that can be played in English, even though they were only released in Japan. Just haven't gotten to them yet. If that sounds like something that appeals to you, if you are a patron who donates $5 or more, write in your selection when we put up the vote. And, well, I guess it won't be a vote. It'll be more of a drawing. Mm-hmm. And if I draw your selection, then I will review the game that you named.
The all-patron budget game vote includes games that you haven't had in the budget vote yet.
Yeah, I tried to select games that have been released throughout the years that have not yet made it into the vote to the best of my memory.
We have It's Spring Again, Rocket Wars, Polstario, Robots Under Attack, War Room, Ant Gravity Tiny's Adventure, Hex On, and Dongo Adventure.
As per usual with these, I know absolutely nothing about them, but whichever one sounds most interesting to Patreon patrons who have donated at least $1, go ahead and vote on those, and I will play and review the one that got the most votes.
Now to talk about some of the highlights for the games eShopperReviews covered in the month of November 2023. And we'll start by talking about the bad games, the worst games.
Okay. Well, I'll try and make it quick for you then.
Please. The first one is Big Bang Pro Wrestling.
Big Bang Pro Wrestling is a port of a Neo Geo Pocket Color game. And it's a pro wrestling game, but it has finicky hit detection and bad controls. As pro wrestling games go, it's just not very good.
Bounce House.
Bounce House was a patron-voted game for last month.
Mm-hmm.
It's an arcade-style game where you're going around a bounce house and trying to slam down on other computer-controlled players.
That actually sounds fun.
It does sound fun, but the gameplay is simple and stupid. The AI is brainless and doesn't react to anything that you do, and there's no multiplayer.
Okay, that doesn't sound so fun.
No, not so fun at all.
The answer is 42.
I don't know if the answer is 42, but this game certainly doesn't make you want to find that answer. It is so dull. As puzzle games go, it is perfectly competent. It is something that works, but it is boring as all heck. Yeah, not really much to say about it. It's boring.
Biomotor Unitron.
This is another one of those Neo Geo Pocket Color games. This is an RPG that has you kind of creating the ultimate fighting robot, which sounds really amazing, but the mechanics of the RPG, the world, are all just poorly constructed, not very interesting. Again, pretty dull.
The Thief Simulator 2023 From Crook to Boss.
I really like the premise of this game. The whole idea of it's like a first person, you're being a thief sneaking into a house trying to grab valuables and not get caught. But the progression in this game is really slow. It's just a very tedious, grindy experience. There's not a lot of depth behind the actual gameplay. I feel like if I really want to play a good thief game, I'm still better off playing something like Skyrim and playing as a thief, which is kind of sad because that wasn't even the main part of Skyrim, but it's still a better thief game than this one.
Super Jaeger Bomb.
I'm not sure if it's Jaeger or Jagger. I think it's Jagger.
I think it's Jagger.
I think Jaeger has one G.
Right.
You're thinking of Attack on Titan, right?
I'm thinking of Attack on Titan and the alcoholic drink.
Right, the Jaeger bomb,
Mm-hmm.
of course. So this one, it's based on an old arcadey type game called Bomb Jack. And I thought that was a pretty crappy game to begin with, so it's not a great choice for a game to make a inspired by type of thing. And yeah, this game doesn't make it much more interesting. It's got terrible platforming, it's ugly, it's repetitive. Skip it.
All right, let's talk about the best games then.
Let's do that.
The first one is called Lost in Play.
Lost in Play kind of surprised me. This is a graphic adventure that it has really gorgeous graphics. They're all hand-drawn. It has these really cute characters. All of the dialogue is kind of like little mumbles, and you're just kind of getting a feel for what they're talking about by what the visuals are showing you. But everything is kind of dreamlike and a little silly, and it really plays on the idea of you're kind of inside the imagination of these two kids who are playing. And it's really adorable. It's imaginative. It's creative. I feel like anyone who likes graphic adventure games, this is definitely one to get.
WarioWare Move It.
I really enjoy the WarioWare series, and I thought it was kind of bizarre that the first WarioWare game on the Nintendo Switch, WarioWare Get It Together, I think it was.
I think so, yeah.
It was good. I liked it, but it was a very out of the norm thing for the WarioWare series, where all of the characters you were controlling like characters on a screen, and it was just, all of them controlled differently. It was a different thing. WarioWare Move It is more of a traditional WarioWare game, and it's so traditional, in fact, that it plays a lot like the Wii entry in the series, WarioWare Smooth Moves. And for the most part, it is a really good successor to that makes pretty good use of the Nintendo Switch motion controls. And I feel like more so than the other WarioWare game, this one has some really fun multiplayer, which you can kind of attest to, right, Jen?
I really enjoyed it. It also makes you move around a lot, hence the title. This is a great party game. This is a great game to play with your kids.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great game for adults that want to remember what it's like to be a kid, I suppose.
It's so silly and
random.
You're doing all kinds of weird stuff. Like, one moment you'll be a seaweed on the seabed having to wave your arms around like an idiot. The next one, you'll be a girl being greeted by another girl, and you'll need to do the motion of curtsying toward her.
Or you need to, move a big giant snowball with your butt.
Oh, yeah, we had the butt bump snowballs into each other. Oh, it is so hilarious and unique, and Well, I say unique, but I mean, this is kind of the series doing its thing, but this is it doing its thing very well. If you ever were curious about what WarioWare is about, this is a great choice to make for your introduction to the series. If you haven't already played the original game that's on Nintendo Switch Online on the Game Boy Advance app. However, as far as a modern entry in the WarioWare series go, I think this one ticks all the boxes. It is exactly what I would have wanted from a WarioWare game.
Star Ocean, the second story, R.
This is a remake of a classic PlayStation JRPG, and it is a really wonderful remake. I don't think it's technically HD 2D in style, but it evokes that kind of look and feel to it. So it looks really gorgeous. It has a completely remastered soundtrack that sounds great. It uses the voice work from the PlayStation Portable remake of the game that came out a long while ago. And the gameplay itself is very good too. Like, all of it, if this was a new game released today, I don't think anyone would question it. It works extremely well. It's very fun to play. And it is way better than the first Star Ocean, which honestly I didn't care for so much. Compared to that one, this one is absolutely brilliant. And for JRPG fans on the Switch, you have yet another game to want to get. There are so many great JRPGs on Switch. Here's another one.
On to the hidden gems.
Yes.
Backpack Hero. Which, when you told me about it, I was like, no way. There's no way this game is fun. You're organizing your backpack? Really? But I really liked it.
Oh, yeah. When I saw this announced on the Nintendo Direct, which we'll talk about that in a bit, I immediately said, that looks like a lot of fun. And I snatched it up as quickly as I could, and I soon found out, yes, it is a lot of fun. It does really creative stuff with how you organize your backpack and how that affects the RPG gameplay, where if items are adjacent to each other, they can have a bonus, or some items demand to be on the bottom or demand to be on the top, or some items can connect to others through a network. There are all kinds of fun little ways that it makes it important just how you organize and sort out the way that everything is arranged in your backpack in this RPG. And then, on top of that, once you get back to your little town, you sell off everything that you got in the dungeon and can use that to build up your town in kind of like this management sim style game.
Yeah, it's very cute. I would imagine the game as a partial deck builder, or as the backpack is your hand.
I suppose you could say that.
That's how I saw it.
I don't know that I would quite put it like that, but some of what you're saying, I feel like you're trying to reference things like Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
And it definitely does do some things like Slay the Spire. Like, it has a roguelike element to it, where each time you go through the dungeon, it's all randomized, everything's different, the items that you get are different, and that means that you're going to have a different style of play through each playthrough, which is great. It gives it tons of variety. It also forecasts what your enemies are going to do during combat, which is another thing that Slay the Spire did. So I feel like this definitely brings in a lot of those elements. It has a lot of the strategic elements that Slay the Spire did very well. I don't feel like I would call it a deck building or a card RPG, but I could definitely see how people who are fans of those games could easily transition to this and go, oh yeah, I can definitely see the strategy here. I enjoy the roguelike elements. All around, I thought this was a wonderful game, and it was a lovely surprise from the Nintendo Direct.
This way madness lies.
Talk about another lovely surprise. This is a RPG from the folks who made, what was it? Cosmic Star Heroine and Cthulhu Saves Christmas. And these guys have a history of making some really silly and funny and still mechanically really well-crafted RPGs. And this is another one in that same vein. The idea behind This Way Madness Lies is that you are playing as a troupe of high school girls who are in your high school drama club, but they're also magical girls who go into alternate worlds based on Shakespeare plays and fight monsters who are threatening, like Romeo and Juliet and all those characters. It's very silly. It has the classic Shakespearean dialogue, and then there's a little translator where it does silly things with it. The writing in this is sharp and funny and incisive. They're not afraid to take shots at some of the dumber parts of William Shakespeare.
Yeah, and there are dumb parts.
I'm sorry. Both Romeo and Juliet are morons.
Yeah.
Granted, they're children, but they're morons.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting sidetracked here. So, really great writing, very funny game. And on top of that, the mechanics are really good too, because you have to kind of manage your team dynamic. You can only equip some of the abilities that you gain, so you have to kind of figure out what best works for your character and for your team. Overall, again, RPG fans, you have a wealth of options on Nintendo Switch, but here's another really good one that's well worth looking into.
Lost in Random.
This is the second Lost game that I reviewed this month. Lost in Random is not at all like Lost in Play, although they're both good. Lost in Random takes place in a world that seems like it was inspired by the works of Henry Selick, who made Nightmare Before Christmas and Coraline and, those kind of clay stop motion animated films.
Wait, I thought Nightmare Before Christmas was Tim Burton.
Most people do. Tim Burton came up with, I believe, the story that it's based on, but Henry Selick directed it.
Okay. Anyway, sidetracking.
Okay, so Lost in Random has a world that has a look that seems like it's very strongly based on that kind of art style. And the characters and the world that they're in are interesting. But on top of that, it also has some interesting gameplay in that your character is rolling a dice to determine what abilities they can use. And they have cards that it's multiple elements, and it can be a bit overly complex at times, but it's still very interesting. And I feel like that combined with the interesting world definitely make for an extremely unique game that's well worth playing.
SNK versus Capcom Card Fighters Clash.
Over the last few months, I have reviewed a lot of Neo Geo Pocket Color games. This is by far the best of the bunch. In fact, I could almost go so far as to say it is the only worthwhile one of the bunch. Although, if I'm fair, there were a few that were in the collections that were okay. However, this is a collectible card game. Think like the Pokemon card game, and you're kind of along the same lines. You're kind of collecting characters from Capcom games and SNK games, and then you're turning them into a fighting team and putting them out to take out the opponents. It is really well designed. It has aged a bit, but not so horribly that it's unplayable. And they actually did players a favor, because when the game was originally released, it was released in two versions. One version which had all the SNK characters, and one version that had all the Capcom characters. And you were supposed to connect them up and trade and fight with them like you do with Pokemon. In this game, they have included both games in one. Now, this has a disadvantage in that you can't really play it like that on one game save. But if you have a friend who also gets into this game, that way you have the freedom to choose whichever version you want to play with the other player. It's a really fun card game, and the only Neo Geo Pocket Color game that I can say I was absolutely thrilled with. I really enjoyed this game.
Etrian Odyssey 3 HD.
The Etrian Odyssey series I have loved for the longest time, and they got 3 HD remakes on Nintendo Switch this year. The problem is, Etrian Odyssey 1 and Etrian Odyssey 2 both had remakes before, and the remakes that they got before were way better than these remakes. Like, they remade all of the 2D graphics in 3D, they remade the soundtracks to be way better, and it feels like a step backwards going back to Etrian Odyssey HD and Etrian Odyssey 2 HD. It feels like they could have done a better job incorporating those elements into these games. Etrian Odyssey 3, as a core game, I would say is better than Etrian Odyssey 1 and 2, but it also kind of benefits from the fact that there's no better version of this game for me to compare this negatively to. Etrian Odyssey 3 HD is pretty definitively the best version of this game. And it's a very good game, too. As far as JRPGs and dungeon crawlers go, this is definitely one of the better ones in the genre. If you're looking for any one Etrian Odyssey game to get on the Nintendo Switch, this is the one to go for. Go for the third one.
Howl.
This is one of the other games that was announced during the Nintendo Direct. And how can I describe this? It plays a little bit like chess in that all the pieces are on the board, you know where everything is and what they're capable of, and you just have to manage your movements so that you can either kill the wolves or move past them without them getting you. There's enough gameplay elements that it gradually introduces, like there are RPG elements in the game where you get new abilities and stuff. The core mechanics are really good. I really love the imagery in this game. It's kind of got this dark, lonely imagery to it, where you are like the lone person in this world who can do something about these werewolves. And they're kind of gradually turning all the villagers into more werewolves. I will say I'm a bit frustrated that the designs for the enemies in this game, the actual wolves or the monsters or whatever they call them, they all look pretty similar. So there's a bit of trial and error going into these, kind of figuring out how they're supposed to move. Oh, that was that type of one. Okay, so I got to restart and do this over again. That's a bit frustrating, but once you can put that aside, this is a solid puzzle game, and yeah, really enjoyed it.
Minute Fun Racer.
Oh man, I played a lot of good games this month.
You did.
Minute Fun Racer is a fairly inexpensive game. Going off my memory, I want to say I think it's $3. And all of the proceeds from this game, all of the money made off of this game is going to charity. And they're going through rotating charities, so it differs at different times.
Mm-hmm.
The main idea of this game is you are going through what amounts to a randomized obstacle course, trying to get as far as you can, ideally trying to get to the end, but to start with, you only have 10 seconds before you automatically die. But each run, you're earning coins, which can then go to buying upgrades that can help you to get farther and farther in the game the next time. It's a very simple arcade-style game, but it's pretty fun, and it does what it does very well. And I feel like it's so inexpensive, and the fact that all of the proceeds go to charity makes it a really easy game to pick up.
Last one for the category is Talk to Strangers.
So this is another game that's fairly inexpensive. I want to say I think this one was $5. The premise behind this one is it's kind of a graphic adventure style, visual novel style game, something in that area, where you are a door-to-door salesman who is trying to appeal to various customers and get them to buy your products. You're never really told exactly what your products are. That kind of doesn't matter. It's more about just being like, oh, this product will help you appeal to your girlfriend, or, oh, this product is totally safe and will, help you with safety around your house. Trying to find whatever you think will get under the skin of whoever you're selling to. And it has a lot of really great character to it. There is a bit of a trial and error element to it because a lot of the time you're not sure what's supposed to work for various people. But each time you fail out of the game and you restart, it keeps notes of everything you did in your previous runs, so you can go in knowing, oh, I need to go to this house during the morning and this house in the afternoon, or this guy doesn't like it when you talk about this, that kind of thing. It's cute, it's original. I don't think it's the best thing in the world, but I definitely enjoyed it and well worth the $5 or whatever it was that I spent on it.
All right. And then we have one noteworthy review, which is Boom Shine Plus.
Boom Shine Plus is noteworthy because this was another patron-voted game from the previous month. And I wouldn't say it's the best. I wouldn't say it's the worst. Honestly, it's pretty straightforward and bland. You are just setting off an explosion in a field of bouncing dots, trying to create a chain reaction to get as many of them as you can.
Okay.
And it works, it's fine, it's simple, but there's not really enough depth there to make it something that you'll want to play for very long before moving on. It's fine, but there's so much other better stuff you could be playing.
So, October 2023 new additions to the Nintendo Switch Online's Nintendo and Game Boy apps. They include the mysterious Murasame Castle,
Mm-hmm.
Devil World, and Castlevania Legends.
Yeah, Nintendo at the very end of October had kind of a Halloween-themed event. That was kind of what the deal was with all three of these games.
Oh, okay, that makes
all
sense.
Halloween-y themed. And we recorded our podcast before these came out. So we're talking about them now. I was never a big fan of the mysterious Murasame Castle. This was previously only released on the Game Boy Advance Virtual Console. It was originally not released in the United States. And it is sort of kind of a more action-focused sister game to the original Legend of Zelda. But I feel like it goes way too hard in that direction, and it just bombards you with enemies, and I just felt like it wasn't very fun. Devil World is another game that this is actually the very first time it has ever been made available in the United States. I think it was released in Europe before, but at the time, this is during the original NES era, Nintendo of America was worried about any kind of religious imagery in games because they didn't want to create controversy. So a game called Devil World, we're not going to put that out. This game plays a bit like a more complicated Pac-Man style game. And it's interesting. It's not bad, but by today's standards, I feel like it's not very deep, not one that you'll want to play for very long. And finally, Castlevania Legends is a Game Boy game that was decanonized in the Castlevania series. So whenever they talk about the overarching Castlevania story, this game is not included in that. And it's an okay action platformer, but I feel like it suffers from a lot of the same issues that all of the other Game Boy Castlevanias do, which is it's slow-paced, it's monotonous, and in this particular case, you don't even get your sub-weapons until later levels in the game, which really cuts down on the variety even more. So all three of these games were kind of meh. None of them are outright bad. Well, Mysterious Murasame Castle maybe, but Devil World is okay for what it is. Castlevania Legends is okay for what it is. But none of these are huge, massive, you need to play this kind of games. I'd say the most interesting thing about this bunch is all three of them are games that have not been released very often. So even long-standing Nintendo fans might not have played a few of these.
All right. So, news? News! Nintendo is going to make a... Oh, God, I have feelings.
You have feelings?
I have feelings.
Okay.
Nintendo announces a live-action Legend of Zelda movie is in development.
I do not think that a Legend of Zelda live-action movie in and of itself is necessarily a bad idea. I think it could be interesting.
I mean, the World of Warcraft movie could have been interesting. The very first Mario movie could have been great.
And that kind of cuts to why I hesitate, because the people involved in making this movie have, I think it would be best to say, they have a spotty track record at best. First of all, the movie is being produced, or co-produced, I should say, by Shigeru Miyamoto, the co-creator of Mario and Zelda and all of that stuff, and Avi Arad. And Avi Arad, for those who are not familiar with that name, he's basically been the producer with every non-MCU Marvel movie ever made, for the most part. Daredevil, the one with Ben Affleck. Hulk, the one from Ang Lee. Spider-Man 2, hey, that one was actually good. Iron Man, that was before the MCU was the MCU, but it's technically a part of the MCU. Hey, Iron Man was pretty good. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. Venom 1 and 2. Morbius.
I mean, we get
Uncharted.
It, right? We get it.
He's had a few genuine hits under his producer belt. Spider-Man 2, Iron Man, Spider-Man Spider-Verse films 1 and 2. All of those are great. But his track record as a producer leaves a lot to be desired. That's the producer. The movie is going to be directed by Wes Ball, which is not exactly a household name. Wes Ball directed the Maze Runner movies, and he's also going to be directing the upcoming Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And hey, the new Planet of the Apes movies so far have all been really good, but Wes Ball wasn't involved in any of those. So all that he has are kind of these post-apocalyptic teen drama movies that, I mean, I can't speak to them. I haven't seen the Maze Runner films, but also nothing about them interested me, and it's not like anyone I've ever talked to has said, oh, you need to see the Maze Runner movies. Finally, the writer of the Legend of Zelda movie is going to be Derek Connolly, and Derek Connolly's works have included the Jurassic World trilogy, Kong Skull Island, which, hey, that one was good, Pokemon Detective Pikachu, which, hey, that one was good, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which I haven't seen, but everyone says is like one of the worst Star Wars movies. So it's like they have selected a team that
has a spotty record.
It doesn't inspire confidence.
No. And the thing is, Link is a character that doesn't talk.
Yes and no. In Tears of the Kingdom, he doesn't have voiced lines, but when you are communicating with characters, he actually has a personality in the answers you can select. Like when you are...
We don't hear him!
No, we don't hear him.
Look, video game movies in general have been known to flop, except for a fair few. But the fact that one of the main protagonists doesn't really speak, I just don't know how a movie will be made where one of the main protagonists doesn't speak, but the other protagonist talks to him and then somehow hears his answer. Well, it's gonna be so bizarre.
We have seen a talking Link in a few other pieces of media before.
And how did that go, Jake?
Excuse me, princess. Do you know what I'm referring to here? Oh my word, I will have to show you. It is just as bad as you are thinking. Oh. And that's one thing. The other thing is the CDI Zelda games. It's all bad. Now, here's the thing. Just because it's only been bad before doesn't mean that it can't be good. But the fact that this is the team that they're building already fails to inspire confidence. And then it's to the question of, okay, who do they cast for the characters?
What's the story going to be?
I mean, that's a separate question, but it's like, okay, let's look at who they cast as Link, because that's the one that everybody's looking at. And I don't see any good answers unless they cast an unknown. And I don't feel like Nintendo wants to cast unknowns, because when they cast the Mario movie, they were like, who should play Mario? How about the most famous guy ever? Let's cast Chris Pratt as Mario, regardless of whether or not it makes sense for Mario.
So I think if they need to cast, of course they need to. If they're going to cast anybody for Link, I think it should be an actor that isn't well known, so that people don't have this image of who Link is, in relationship to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it should be an unknown as well, but I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to try for someone as famous as possible.
I feel like Link should be, if they want an actor who's well known, I think it should be somebody who's relatively new to the Hollywood scene.
Can you even think of anyone?
I don't watch movies anymore.
I mean, you've seen a few.
I've seen a few, but it's when I have free time, I play video games.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like you can go with a more established actor for Zelda and for Ganondorf. For Zelda, depending on how old of a Zelda, because you can get an older Zelda, you can get a younger Zelda. They've had both in games. You want someone classy for Zelda. For Ganondorf, there's all kinds of directions you can go in, but generally you want someone who has presence, who, when he enters the room, heads turn and go, oh, this guy could be dangerous.
Jason Momoa has presence, and he kind of fits the build in terms of what Ganondorf looks like in Tears of the Kingdom.
I could almost see Jason Momoa fitting it. I feel like he doesn't seem old enough for it.
Makeup.
Yeah, I
Makeup.
guess.
Makeup's easier to make you look older versus
It's funny,
younger.
every actor that I've heard suggested for Link seems too old to me, and it's like, I feel like maybe an older actor for Ganondorf. Because the thing with Link is, in almost all of the video games that you play as Link, he is either a child or he is a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
You could maybe do a young adult Link, but I feel like that's really stretching things. I don't know. And then it raises the... Let's get back to what you asked a moment ago. Which version of the story do they go for? Are they going for Breath of the Wild? Are they going for A Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time? And I feel like all of those would be valid starting points for building a story, but I feel like you also don't want to copy paste it from those, because those are stories made for a video game, and you need something that has a 2-hour narrative for a movie.
And not just that, but is it going to be canon? Or is it going to...
you opened a huge cannon of worms there, let me tell you.
Or is it going to be a movie that becomes canon if it does well? Or doesn't become canon because it was a big flop?
There is a huge argument online, still to this day, about whether or not all of the Zelda games are canonical with each other.
Yeah.
Because, on the one hand... if you look just at individual games, like going from Wind Waker to Breath of the Wild, those two games seem like they're set in completely different universes that don't really have an effect on each other. But people have argued, and Nintendo even put out at one time, and I'm not sure if it's official or semi-official or what, but they put like a timeline thing where at one point the timeline split into 3 and then they join up again later, and different games are at different points on the timeline. It's weird.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're right. When the movie comes out, people are going to be arguing again, is the movie on the timeline? And if it's on the timeline, where does it fit? Is it going to be in one of the 3 that's split? Is it going to be, or is it going to be a reinterpretation of a game that we've already seen?
Or is it just going to be a movie?
You're going to make me bleep that out.
Oh, yes, I'm going to make you bleep that. But
here's the thing. I had the same worries about the Mario movie because their casting seemed mostly all
but here's the thing. It was CGI. It's all animated.
You can have crappy CGI movies.
Okay, but it's easier to get away with that versus live action, because in live action, there's that cringe element to it. Like
there can be cringe in an animated movie, believe me.
Yeah, but you can make it work. Have you seen the live action One Piece movie?
No.
Okay, it's just translating anime into a live action movie feels cringe. It feels awkward because of the 2 variations in the worlds. And I feel like that sort of awkwardness is going to be there in the live action movie.
Out of everything, that's the part here that honestly has me the least concerned. Because out of all of Nintendo's properties, Zelda is one of the ones that I feel most lends itself to live action. I don't feel like Mario seems like it would work very well in live action, even though they tried that once. I still need to get you to watch that, by the way.
Please no. Please no. No, I do agree Zelda is probably the best game to make into a live action, but it's only been in the past 5-ish years that people have been able to make a good video game turned movie.
I would disagree with that, actually. The first Mortal Kombat movie, way back when
I was a kid.
When you were a kid, the first Mortal Kombat movie was decent. It wasn't like, oh, you need to see this movie, it's the best movie ever. But it was all right. Geez, what other video game movies have been worthwhile? Pokemon Detective Pikachu, but that's recent, like you said.
Mm-hmm. And the Mario movie. The World of Warcraft movie was a flop.
I thought
the Dungeons and Dragons movie was
Well, Dungeons and Dragons isn't based on a video game.
No, but it's a tabletop game, so I may as well just include it.
And you're forgetting, the most recent Dungeons and Dragons movie actually did pretty well in the box office, and critically it was pretty well received, too. It's supposedly a fun romp.
I would rather watch that versus the really bad Mario movie.
I mean, there's room for both.
No,
you can't enjoy watching a ridiculously bad movie just to laugh at the train wreck.
I don't want to see a train wreck. I want to play a video game or see a good movie.
Yeah, and that's just it is. I don't feel like being live action, being CG is what's going to determine whether or not the movie is good. I think it's going to come down to, is the talent that's creating the movie capable of making a good story that's well told? And given the talent that we're seeing behind this movie, I have serious doubts.
I have serious doubts too, but I will eat my words if it actually does well.
Well, I mean, yeah, if it does well, we'll have to.
Yeah, I will eat my words. Anyway, moving on from the movie. We'll talk about the Nintendo Indie World, which aired November 14th, 2023, and it had some very good titles in there.
Yep, a few of them we've already discussed here that actually made my hidden gems because at least when I reviewed them, they didn't have many reviews up.
Shantae Advance Risky Revolution.
This one is really cool. Like, I like the Shantae series in general. They're generally very good games. But this one is actually a game that was originally meant to release on the Game Boy Advance, but never got completed. And it's like, we're finally getting a lost game we never even knew existed. And that's pretty awesome.
I want to congratulate the studio that did finish this game because it took them 20 years to do it. They should be congratulated. Next game is Core Keeper, which I actually saw on Steam the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It looks cute. It looks like a procedurally generated underground Stardew Valley-ish game.
Yeah, that's kind of my takeaway too. Like I was saying when you were watching this, my initial reaction to seeing this game is, oh, that's a game Jen's going to want. And it's a game you're going to want on PC.
On PC,
because I know you, and I know you prefer your PC games.
I do. On Your Tail is coming out 2024, and it's a timed console exclusive.
This one, it seemed like it made a bigger impression on you than it did on me.
Yeah, mainly because, and I think I'm remembering it right, there's a little bit of like mystery and detective work involved.
Yeah.
The one after that one was Howl, which was shadow dropped and was named one of your hidden gems.
Mm-hmm.
The star named Eos comes out spring 2024. I don't know what to think about that. It looks gorgeous.
This one didn't really make a big impression on me personally. So, I mean, yeah, it looks fine, but it didn't really excite me.
Backpack Hero, which we spoke about.
Yep.
Blade Chimera looks...
This one looks great. This one I definitely want to play. So this is being designed by the same team that made Record of Lodoss War, D-Lit, and Wonder Labyrinth, which I haven't played yet, but I hear is like a light version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which is the best Metroidvania ever made. So the fact that it's being held in the same regard as that is pretty high praise. And this game looks very much in that same vein. I love the art style. I love the weird kind of futuristic, but with magic kind of world that it's in. The cool, like, attacking with the magical sword thing looks great. Everything about this definitely interests me, and yeah, I'd say it was one of the highlights of the Direct.
A Highland Song comes out on December 5th. Basically, if you want to see Scotland and hear some really beautiful music, this isn't a bad game.
Just
it looks pretty.
Watching the trailer for this, I thought the music sounded wonderful, the voice acting was excellent, and the art style for it is great. Everything about this has me interested. So yeah, this is another one that I really liked.
Moonstone Island comes out spring 2024. It's also a console exclusive, timed console exclusive.
This is that one where it's kind of like, it's, got the card RPG elements and it's got the farming stuff. And
to me, it felt like it was doing too much.
I don't know. It didn't really capture me, but it didn't repel me either. I'm like, okay, fine.
Death Trick Double Blind 2024, also a timed console exclusive.
I guess with you liking your detective games, this is another one that probably appealed to you, yeah?
Yeah, and it's very interesting to see international studios making games that have an aesthetic that's completely different from the origin country of the studio. This studio for Death Trick, they speak Mandarin, so I'm assuming they're a Chinese studio. But The art style is like based in the 1920s, 1930s of a circus, and I was kind of like intrigued by it. So I might pick this up. I don't know yet. We'll see.
Yeah, I like some detective games too, but for whatever reason, this one didn't quite capture me either.
That's fine. Outer Wilds Archaeologist Edition.
This one had been announced for Nintendo Switch years ago, but it kind of went into development limbo, and we haven't heard anything about it for a while until finally now we have an actual release date for it on December 7th, 2023. So it'll be great to finally see this game hit Switch, especially because everyone I've talked to who's played it says that it is outstanding.
Planet of Lana, Spring 2024. I don't remember much about this one.
This was in their final demo reel
Oh,
or
the
whatever.
highlight reel,
The highlight reel, rather. Yeah.
And then the other one that was in that reel was Enjoy the Diner and Heavenly Bodies.
I don't really remember much of any of. They didn't make an impression on me.
They made an impression on me for the artwork. Enjoy the Diner had a lot of monochromatic artwork. Heavenly Bodies, I believe, was a pixel art game.
Okay.
That was a murder mystery.
Okay.
Maybe. Other ones include The Gecko Gods, which looks adorable.
I think that game looks outstanding. That one, like, it looks like a really fun platformer. It has a fun kind of cel-shaded art style, but kind of with pastels, and yeah, it looks really great.
Passepartout, The Lost Artist, which was shadow dropped as well.
Passepartout or whatever.
Passepartout. Yeah. I don't know.
It could be French.
It could be French.
Passepartout.
Yeah, that's how I read it. Anyway.
Yeah. This one, I mean, looks interesting. I still need to play the first game, so
okay. And then Urban Myth Dissolution Center 2024.
This one, I love the pixel art style for this one. Like, it has a very striking look to it. Like, there's one scene where it shows this girl hiding under a bed from, someone's walking in front, and just like the emotion that they get out of this two-color art style.
Oh, maybe that was what I was thinking of earlier.
No, they both had art styles. When you talked about Enjoy the Diner, that one also has a very stark pixel art style to it.
It's hard to remember when they just put it through the highlight reels. And then the last one is Braid Anniversary Edition.
I am so happy that this is finally coming to Nintendo Switch. I love this game. I played it originally on the Xbox 360 so many years ago, and I'm definitely looking forward to finally getting it on Nintendo Switch. Having said that, it seems like a very odd game to end out the presentation on. Like, they didn't have just one more thing. There wasn't any big thing to close it out. It was just, I'm reporting Braid over. Which, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, normally they do have a big, and just in case.
Yeah.
This is what we've been hiding.
So, overall, for this Indie World Direct, I thought it was overall pretty good. A lot of the stuff they showed off appealed to me. Some of it
you
didn't.
got, what was it, 2 or 3 games out of that list?
So, kind of forecasting things here, but what the heck? If you listen to the podcast, let's give you a sneak peek at what's to come. I've already reviewed Backpack Hero and Howl, which came out on the day of the Direct, and I enjoyed both of them. I loved Backpack Hero. In fact, I gave that game a B+, and now I'm starting to wonder if that might have been a bit too low, because
I think an A-.
I'm kind of craving going back to that now. Let's see, Blade Chimera, they haven't done a pre-sale for it, but that's definitely what I'm going to be watching for. A Highland Song, I have already bought my prepaid thing for, and Outer Wilds I prepaid for as well. So yeah, there were actually multiple games in this Direct that I saw that and I'm like, yeah, I'm buying that, I'm buying that, I'm buying that, and I'm buying that. So I'm sure that with A Highland Song and Outer Wilds, which both come out in the month of December, you will probably be hearing me talk about those games in the month of December.
All right, and that wraps things up for our final eShopper Reviews podcast. Again, we want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon for contributing. Patreon donors have been the first ones to gain access to these podcasts, and if you are interested in becoming a donor, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/eShopperReviews. And once again, if you're curious to read any of the reviews mentioned in this podcast, you can find full reviews for all of these games and thousands more on eShopperReviews.com. This has been Jen Ip
and Jake McNeil.
We'll see you in our upcoming game streams, and in the meantime, we both hope you found this content helpful and enjoyed some good games. Catch you all next time.
Thank you again very much for listening. Catch you all later.
Yay!